Hey guys, this is Allison from AllyKatkreations. How are you? So I'm going to be doing more readings and more fun. Now that I got my life semi-settled, I got my car all finished today. That took up a lot of my time. I passed my inspection. I got caught in a hellstorm of traffic. It was really crazy today. But I posted 2 oracles, those for those in the struggle, and a sassy New Yorker with an attitude oracle. It's really funny. If you need a good laugh, if you're not upset with foul language, it's not that bad, but they're on the cards. Go check it out. Before I even read, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. They're still playing with the numbers. Yep, they are. Does it really matter? No, but the more people who like, the more people who circulate my work around, the more people can hear it, understand it, maybe not, maybe resonate, maybe not, but it gives an opportunity for others to hear this work. Not just this book, all the books and all the things that I do. So please pass that around. It's helping me. My circumstances are dire, so anything that you could do to help me, which is free, is great. If you can give me a love donation, that's even better. I really would appreciate it. My co-host is here. Here she is. My co-host with the mostest, with the tail. So with the Oahspe, I've been debating on, I'm going to read the whole thing, but I was debating upon a couple of different parts. And this one, sorry guys, she's in her mood. Spirit was like, this one. So I'm going to read Book of Divinity. Most likely going to have to chop this one up like the Book of War, because it is very lengthy, which is not a bad thing. I just want to caution everybody for that. So let's begin. Maybe not. Let me see if I can get her to move. See how long that stays. Book of Divinity, which descended to the earth and became known as the names Div and Diva and Divian Laws, being God's laborers in atmosphere, Hada, for a period of 3,100 years during the passage of the earth from the Ark of Lu to the Ark of Septa in Etheria, and on the earth from the time of Zarathustra to the time of Abraham and Brahma and Po and Iwata. I like Frederick Nietzsche. Thus spoke Zarathustra. It's one of my favorites. Reminds me of myself. Chapter 1. God, son of Jehovah, said, by virtue of my own authority and in the name of Jehovah, creator of all things, peace and comprehensive judgment be unto angels and mortals, that ye may be taught from the little that has been demonstrated in the world of governments and principalities being manifested on earth, that similar organic bodies exist in the heavens belonging to the earth, which heavenly places and governments were the cause and forerunners of good governments manifested amongst mortals. Jehovah said, he that is chief of a government on earth shall be called king, but he who is chief of my heavenly government shall be called God. And so it was. Just like Urantia and the keys of Enoch, here again is proof Oahspe is telling you there's a government upstairs. It's a government. Way better than what is going on in the world. Mind you. Mind you. I, who am God in thy own behalf, for the enlightenment of the world, declare the glory and wisdom of Jehovah above all things on earth or in the heavens above, wherein Jehovah provided that no man could be a king forever, but must give away to a successor, even so in his heavens, provided he also unto his gods and lords for successors at certain periods of time, that the way might be open for the everlasting resurrection of all men, whereby all who choose may in time become also lords and gods for the countless worlds that are now and shall be created. Jehovah said, I blow my breath outward, and behold, all things are created. They go away in disorder, but they come back to me orderly and in organic companies. And even in every individual member is like a tree bloomed in perfection in every branch. Jehovah said, these companies returning to me in all their glory are marshaled in decorum and discipline at my gods for such their labor. Jehovah said, the laborers of my gods shall be chiefly in atmosphere, Hada. Nevertheless, my gods and lords shall not only labor with the spirits of the dead to teach them organic discipline and harmony, but they shall provide unto mortals that they also may learn the system and glory of my creation. Guys, I am so sorry. She wants to eat paper. She's trying to eat the book. She's like, no, Ma, I don't want you to be doing a reading right now. Miss Sassy. In the time of Fragapeti, in the dawn of the cycle of Lu in heaven, Jehovah commanded the founding of an organic congress for his God and lords and his Lord gods. And Fragapeti thus created the organic body and named it the Diva, making God the chief thereof with title Div, even as it is known to this day in the sacred books of mortals. Jehovah said, in the early days of a world I gave the races of man on the earth a despot to rule over them. But in time after I gave them representative governments with many voices having a right to help make the laws. Even so do I provide unto Haddon heavens. In the early days I provided a God who shall be dictator and governor in his own way. But in after times I provide a parliament in heaven, wherein my God and my Lord shall jointly consult together in framing laws for angels and mortals. And these shall be called Divian laws. Jehovah said, behold, my God and lords and sub-gods shall teach the same thing in the different parts of the earth and these heavens. I will not have one Lord teaching one thing in one place, and another teacher the same thing differently in another place. Jehovah said, my God and Lord shall provide comprehensively so that all peoples on earth and in heaven may be drawn toward me in harmony and discipline. God said, I, God of earth, being made Div by Jehovah's will, through his sons Fragapeti, heard the Creator's voice saying, Div, my son, proclaim thou the Oahsmandian law and the Ahuna Mazian Law and the Zarathustrian law. God said, this then is the Oahsmandian law, and Ormond, the Creator, displayeth his creations, which he cited. He set the stars in the firmament. These are the words of the book of the Almighty. He made the earth substances of the earth, and all the things thereon and therein. These are the words of the Creator Oahsman, the Jehovah. The substances of things going and coming forever, creating and dissolving from one shape into another. These are the Oahsmandian Law, the Deviant Law. By virtue of his presence, these things speak, impress upon one another forever. What these things speak upon the soul of man, right upon the soul of man. These are man's knowledge acquired by the Oahsmandian Law, the Deviant Law. What these things speak upon the souls of angels, right upon the souls of angels. These are the angels' knowledge acquired by the Oahsmandian Law and the Deviant Law. God said, this also is the Oahsmandian Law, perpetual growth, as man being brought forth out of what was not an entity, thereby becoming an entity, this brought about by the Oahsmandian Law. With capacity in man for everlasting life, with a capacity to acquire knowledge and power forever and never attain to the Almighty, as a road whereon a man may run in full liberty forever and never come to the end thereof, rejoicing on his journey. This is the Oahsmandian Law. As the actions of corporeal substances produce light, as light is the expression of speech of certain corporeal changes, so is Oahsman, the master light, the Creator, that which illuminateth the soul of man, making men conscious that he is making man express his impressions. This is the Oahsmandian Law. This is the ever-presence that terminateth not forever. Though worlds come into being and go out of being as such, yet Oahsman remaineth. He is the forever, and within him all creations created. These are the Oahsmandian Law, the Deviant Law. God said, this then that followeth is the Ahuna Mazian Law, the school of knowledge kept by God and his lords for teaching mortals and angels, wherein certain discipline and words are necessary to cause the congregating of man and angels to dwell together and to travel onward forever in harmony and rejoicing. Behold, a great multitude was in disorder and confusion, and unhappiness resulted. Then came order and discipline, and the multitude was harmonized and filled with rejoicing. This accomplished, it was the Ahuna Mazian Law. Jehovah had said, behold, I create man with the possibility of becoming a creator under me. The first lesson of creation I gave into man's hands is that he shall create harmony and affiliation within himself and with his neighbors, that the many may become in concert even as one man. God said, such was the Oahsmandian Law, to create man with the possibility of becoming a creator under Jehovah, Oahsmaz, but within man and angels through their God and lords became to create harmony and discipline. That was the Ahuna Mazian Law. As a manual of arms is to the soldier, making them a unit in motion, so is the Ahuna Mazian Law in making and teaching peace and order and unity amongst mortals and on earth and angels in heaven. By the Ahuna Mazian Law are the heavenly kingdoms in Hada maintained, and by the same law are great kingdoms and nations on earth built up. the discipline of God and the Lords through their Ashars in ruling over mortals for the comprehensive benefit of the whole. This is the Ahuna Mazian Law. It is called the Ahuna Mazian Law because God and his Lords through their Ashars keep guard and rule over all mortals and angels for their own exhilaration in heavens above. God said, here followeth then the Zarathustrian law, the bestowal of words to mortals, of the dominion of God and his Lords, the making of all good mortals, joint heirs and members of the same heavenly kingdoms, wherein God and his Lords in their holy council in heaven devise and administer laws for the ultimate resurrection of all men. The revealed word of heaven to mortals is this, the Zarathustrian law. The word was with God, and God came the word. This is a Zarathustrian law. For the word being established through Zarathustra became the life of God in flesh, being perpetual to the end of the world. For though Zarathustra be forgotten, and the words of his mouth remembered not on the whole earth, yet the Zarathustrian law, the revelations of God to man, became everlasting in the souls of mortals, for that time forth forever and ever. For men to know of and to desire to become one with the all-highest, this is the Zarathustrian law. No matter if it through what name it striveth, even so he strived to know the will of God. When a king desireth soldiers for his army, he sendeth recruiting emissaries, calling, come ye, join the armies of the king. Even so, but for peace and righteousness sendeth God his Lords and holy angels down to mortals, saying, come ye, join the kingdom of God. And when they come, behold, they use certain rites and ceremonies with the words and sacred days. The names of these rites and ceremonies and the words revealed by God, these are the Zarathustrian laws. For they are the initiative by which mortals become joint workers with God and his Lords. Ooh. Still hasn't moved. I tried. What you do for your pets, I swear. She's lucky she's 17. She's stupid cute and she's my protector, so I can't move her. Chapter 2. God said, be attentive, O man, to the voice of thy Lord and his angels. Be patient, that thou mayest understand the dominion of thy God and add glory unto the Almighty. The div was the chief and the lords, and their officers comprised the Divian Congress of the period of time whereof this book pertaineth. I have a question for everybody as I'm reading this. Congress. Now, I know that America was already in its formality and formed when this was channeled and given. But I'm very curious if the Congress is something that actually exists upstairs. Because the government is definitely upstairs and it's in now 3 books. So very interesting wording right there, to say the least. So if you have read it in another book about the governmental structure of heaven, whatever density that resides in, and all the other functionings, please let me know. Because I'm interested in knowing that. And such mortals of that day who joined in the armies of God were represented by the voice of guardian angels through their Lord, according to the nation or place representeth. And the Ashars reported to their Lord as to conditions and places of mortals, and as to the conditions and places of angels also. And the Lord spake thereon in Diva. And the Div decreed laws and governments unto mortals and angels according to what was best for them. Jehovah said, I am the light and the life. Behold me, I am Oahspe. When I shape my thoughts into words, behold, I am Ahuna Mazian. I am the word. When the words of my kingdom are registered with mortals, behold me, I am Zarathrustrian law. I am 3 in 1. Even so have I given unto thee, O Div, and to my angels and my mortals, for ye 3 shall be a unit in the 4 herents of my kingdoms. Behold, your labor shall be henceforth called divinity, Divian, and whoso falleth under your inspiration shall be called divine, divas. God said, consider, O man, the wisdom of thy God to perceive what is feasible to thine own judgment, and be thou far reaching with thine own members. The Div decreed to carry birthrights down to mortals, to teach mortals when their children were born, to consecrate them to Diva. Under a rod with water, after such manner, Assyrians were baptized in heaven, with rites and ceremonies and words according to the Zarathrustrian law and Ahuna Mazian Law, the Oahspe law. God said, in time of the baptismal of mortal children, behold, my lords appointed Ashars unto such children to keep them in the way of the Almighty. This was the first Divian divine law. The Div decreed to establish wedding rites and ceremonies with words and processions in order to bind firmly monogamic marriages according to the Zarathrustrian law, the Ahuna Mazian Law, and or Mazian Law. God said, in the time of marriages, behold, my lords appointed new Ashars unto man and wife, whose duties were to minister unto them as unto a small kingdom for the glory of Jehovah. This was the second Divian divine law. The Div decreed to establish funeral rites and ceremonies with the words according to the Diva, that is Zarathustrian, the Ahuna Mazian, and the Mazian law. This was the third Divian law. God said, in the birth rites, in the marriage rites, and in the funeral rites, recording angels of the Lord were present, and afterward they reported these things to my kingdom in heaven. And all such mortals as carried out these rites and ceremonies with words were named Zarathustrians. Nevertheless, there were many others who, not being compatible of the inspiration, stood aloof from me and my kingdoms. Jehovah said, I blame not my God and my lords, that their love ran more to the favor of such mortals as became Zarathustrians than to such as rejected God and his lords. Neither do I censure God and his lords for favoring their chosen in building cities, nations, and empires, leaving such other mortals as were enemies to perish in their cities, kingdoms, and nations. God said, ye who are one with the divine law are free from the law, but they that reject me and my kingdom are bound by the law. Of the first 3 divine laws, God said, these are the sacred words decreed to mortals by father or mother. I bestow this, my child, to be good Zarathustrian according to the Diva, and in marriage by the bride and by groom. I bestow myself to these, my mate, a good Zarathustrian according to the Divya, and in sacrament previous to death, I confess with repentance, I, a good Zarathustrian, unto thee, O Oahspe, and to thy lords of heavenly hosts of Diva. Whoa. Chapter 3. God said, behold, I come to reveal what was done in heaven, that thou, O man, mayest understand the cause of things being done on earth. These Divian laws were made in heaven and by the lords of the day, through their angels given to mortals, whereby mortals became a manifestation of heavenly things. Here then follows to wit, if a man be not too weak, he shall confess to all the lords and repentance. On the other hand, if he be too weak to utter words, then shall the priest confess him by holding the right hand while he saith the holy words. And while this is being done, the Ashars shall prove and provide a sufficient number of spirits to receive the newborn and bring him to the place in heaven that hath been previously selected for him. The third Divian law also decreed as followeth: if the Assyrian be a Zarathustrian and his kin in heaven be Drujas, he shall not be taken to heaven where they are, nor shall his kin be permitted to see him for 30 days. But after 30 days in his own place in heaven, his kin, if Drugas, may be permitted to see him, be only under guard. The fourth Divian law: if the Essenes be Zarathustrian and his kin in heaven belong to the organic heavens, then he shall be taken to them, and his abiding place shall be with them for a season. The fifth Divian law: if the Essenes be Zarathustrian, his spirit shall not be suffered to remain longer than 3 days and 3 nights about his mortal kindred, and then he shall be taken to his place in heaven and given into the keeping of the Asifs, who shall explain all things to him. God said, whilst the mortal priest is reciting prayers after death in the morning, at noon, and at sunset, the Ashars shall assemble in the same house along with the newborn spirit and join in the singing and praying, for it will pacify the spirit and restore him to know what hath taken place. And this shall be called the sixth Divian law. God said, and the same law shall apply to the case of a Zarathustrian woman as with the man. In the case of a Zarathustrian child that died in infancy, the Div decreed. The seventh Divian law: the child of a Zarathustrian being too young to speak shall not make confession, even through the priest. The mortal priest shall say, O thou master light, behold, my child is dead. Receive thou its little tender spirit. Take it to thy heavenly place of delight. And the Ashars shall take the young Assyrian to a place suited to it, and deliver it to the Asifs. And the Asifs shall examine it, and if required fetal, they shall provide it in heaven, if possible. But if it be too young, then the Asifs with a sufficient guard shall take it back to its mortal mother, or to its mortal father, or its brother, or its sister, or its near kin, or to whomever so the Asifs find most advisable. And the spirit child shall be put to bed every night with its fetal mother, or fetal father, that its spirit may draw sustenance sufficient to grow into everlasting life. But the Asifs who have it in charge shall bring it away in the morning to take its place in heaven. But in no case shall a Zarathustrian spirit child be left to fetal with a contentious mortal woman, nor with a drunken mortal man. God propounded, if a Zarathustrian be dead, and his spirit many years in a place of heavenly delight, and then his mortal wife die, and she not be a Zarathustrian, the members of the Divian all spake. Then God decreed the eighth Divian law, which was, the spirit of such a woman shall not be suffered to go to the place of her husband. For 30 days shall she be kept in a place suitable for her. After that she may visit her husband under guard. But until she accept the Arman's law, she shall not dwell with the husband in heaven, nor with her children in heaven. And if she have mortal children, she shall not be permitted to see them, save under guard. The ninth Divian law was the same, wherein a Zarathustrian woman whose husband was not a Zarathustrian, for he was bound by the same law, and this kept separate in heaven until he accepted the Ahuna Mazian Law. God propounded if a Zarathustrian have a wife who is not a Zarathustrian, and she have an untimely birth, whether by accident or abortion, what then of the spirit of the child? On this all members of Diva spake, and after that God decreed, such spirit shall not be brought to heaven for a season, but shall be beetled on its natural mother or father, day and night until the full 9 months are completed, and then it shall be delivered with due ceremonies by the Ashars. After that it shall be beetled, the same as in 7th Divian Law, and this was the 10th Divian Law. The 11th Divian Law, if a Zarathustrian attain to maturity before he die, his spirit shall be seen 2 years, and during this time he shall be obtained by not less than 2 asifs when he goeth away for his heavenly home. And the asifs shall teach him the mode of travel, the manner of knowing localities, both on earth and in the first resurrection. And they shall teach him the varieties and kinds of food suited to the highest, best education of a spirit. But when he traveleth with his companions of his own heavenly group, then the asifs of the group shall go along with him and them. And during the 2 years he shall be provided for the stores in heaven with food and clothes, and shall not labor to provide himself with anything. The 12th Divian Law was in reference to the same spirit, which was at the end of 2 years, the asifs shall deliver him and such of his group as prepared into the department of first instruction, and his name shall be entered in the library of the department of heaven as entered apprenticeship in the first resurrection. Here his first lesson shall be to making clothes and providing food for himself and others, and he shall be entitled to participate, if he so desire, in the recreations of the entire apprentices, such as music, dancing, marching, painting, and other arts. The 13th Divian Law was in reference to the same spirit, which was not less than 2 years, shall serve as entered apprentice, and longer if his proficiency be not sufficient for the advancement. But when he is advanced, he shall no longer be called an entered apprentice, but a craftsman, and he shall be taken to a place suitable where his labor was contribute to the heavenly kingdoms, and his resurrections shall entitle him to instruction in both corporal and Assyrian knowledge, and their correspondence. As a craftsman, he shall serve 7 years. The 14th Divian Law was in reference to the same spirit, which was the craftsman's examination being completed. He shall then return to labor in the nurseries in heaven, becoming assistant to the asifs. And during this period, he shall report himself at the roll call, and his teachers shall take him with them down to the mortals and teach him how to see and hear corporal things. And they shall also explain to him feudalism and the obsession of mortals by drujas, that he may understand the cause of lying and stealing and tattling, and on conspiracies of murderers among mortals. The 15th Divian Law was of the same spirit, which was after he hath served 3 years as nurse assistant to the asifs, he shall be promoted to the hospitals in heaven as an assistant to the physicians, and they shall teach him the restoration of spirits in chaos, and crazy spirits, and deformed spirits, and of sick spirits, and of spirits afflicted with foul smells that cannot clean themselves, especially of the spirits of women who produced abortion on themselves, or suffered it to be done unto them, and monomaniacs, and all manner of diseased spirits. And the physician shall take him with them when they go down to mortals to remove, and he shall learn how they are severed safely to both. And they shall take him to the battlefields where mortals slay one another, whose spirits are in chaos or still fighting, and he shall assist in bringing them away from the corporal place, and also learn how to restore them and where to deliver them when restored. And if there be knots in any region near at hand, the physician shall take him to the knot and show him how they are untied and how they are mastered and delivered. And if there be any hell near at hand, the physician shall take him thither and teach him how hell is delivered and its people restored. For 10 years shall he serve as an assistant to the physicians. The 16th Divian Law was of the same spirit, which was, having fulfilled the part of assistant physician, he shall be promoted to the full rank of nurse. And in that department he shall serve 10 years, which completeth his emancipation in that order, and therefore any and all the nurseries of the lower heavens shall be free and open to him, and he shall go to whosoever he desireth, save when especially commanded for a certain work by his Lord or by the God of his division. The 17th Divian Law was of the same spirit, which was, having passed a satisfactory examination by his Lord or his Lord's attendants, he shall be promoted to the full rank of physician, and in the department in heaven he shall serve 50 years. And then his emancipation in that order shall be complete, and all the hospitals in the lower heavens shall be open to him, and he shall choose whichever of them he desireth as his place of labor, unless specifically required by Lord or by the God of his division. The 18th Divian Law was of the same spirit, which was, he shall now pass an examination by his Lord or his Lord's deputy, and if he proved himself in a knowledge of the structure of both the corporal and spiritual man, he shall be registered as an entered factor, and he shall serve 12 years in forming and making fabrics for raiment and for other useful and ornamental purposes. The 19th Divian Law was like unto the 18th, save that his labor shall be gathering and transporting food for another 12 years. And the 20th Divian Law was like unto the 19th, save that his labor shall be the wielding of large bodies and carrying the same long distances. The 21st Divian Law of the same spirit was, he shall now enter the creative as an apprentice. 30 years shall he serve in the creative, learning how to create. And the 22nd Divian Law was like unto the 21st, save that he shall dwell in Uz and serve 12 years in the learning Uz. The 23rd Divian Law of the same spirit was, he shall now enter college and serve according to his talents from 5 to 40 years, learning measuring and distances, rotations, velocities, magnets, corporal, Ascian currents of vortices, roadways in the vortices, and how to measure vortices by their spiral force, how to find the center and the periphery of vortexes. And if he served the full term of 40 years, he shall have the freedom of the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd commandments, and all such places shall be forever open for him. And if he choose to go into any of them, he shall do so, unless especially ordered to some other emergent place by his Lord or the God of his division. The 24th Divian Law of the same spirit was, he shall now enter architecture as an apprentice and learn the building of heavenly mansions and cities, and he shall serve 8 years and be promoted to build judgment, seats and thrones, and serve 16 years more. The 25th Divian Law of the same spirit was, he shall now be eligible to the school of light and darkness, and learn the relative power of attraction and propulsion belonging to them, and his education here shall embrace practice and experiment, and he shall serve 70 years for the full course, after which he will be proficient in creating light and darkness. He shall be emancipated from the 24th and 25th Divian Laws, and all such places shall be open and free to him forever. The 26th Divian Law in the same spirit was, he shall now serve 24 years in building and propelling heavenly boats and small ships. And the 27th Divian Law was of the like, which was that he shall now travel 50 years in atmospheria, on the earth and on the oceans of the earth. This completed the primary education in the first resurrection. My goodness, chapter 4. God said, for the spirit of Zarathustrian, who hath completed his primary education, what then? On which all the members spake. After the div decreed, he shall serve 200 years as an apprentice, Louis. He shall become proficient in the knowledge of procreation of mortals, learning to prophesy what the offspring will be, according to the parentage, to become wise in discerning how the S of a living mortal governeth the flesh, to good or evil, how the S of a mortal controlleth the sex and ultimate size and health and strength of the offspring, to learn which the Louis shall take him to thousands of mortals, and he shall make a record of what he hath under observation. And when such mortals have offspring born unto them, he shall make a record thereof, and he shall observe the character of the birth and the foundation of the child, together with what conditions surrounded the mother of the child. And he shall follow that child till it hath grown up, and also married and begotten a child or children, and so on the 6th generation. This is the 28th Divian Law. Div decree, after he hath served 200 years, he shall be examined by his lord of his lords, deputy, and if proficient in prophesying to the 6th generation, he shall be entered as an Ashar, guardian angel, on a list of 4 12s for every moon's change. But the 48 Ashars shall not be Ashars to move then 192 mortals, unless otherwise specially allowed by the Lord or God in dominion. For 4 generations of 133 years shall he serve as an Ashar, and he shall learn to have dominion over his mortal prestige night and day, not suffering them, however, to know his presence, to accomplish which he shall begin with his proteges in their first infancy, remaining with them whilst they sleep, talking to the spirit of the mortal, teaching and persuading. This was the 29th Divian Law. Div decreed, having served as Ashar, the full term of Ashar, he shall be entitled to examination by his lords or deputy, but therein beginneth a new examination, which is that the examination pertaineth to his proteges, as to what kind of fruit he hath sent to heaven, the grade of his Essenes being the standard. This was the 30th Divian Law. Div decree, having passed the examination as Ashar, he shall be promoted to Asif, where he shall serve 66 years. Here again his examination shall be not of himself, but of the harvest of his department. This was the 31st Divian Law. Div decree, his examination being complete, he shall now receive emancipation for all preceding departments and decrees, and he shall have his choice in all places he hath passed, unless otherwise especially detailed by his Lord or God of his division. This was the 32nd Divian Law. Div decree, he shall now be entitled to enter the chapter of the primary soul. His first lessons shall be in colors and sounds, both of Kapoor and S. First, beginning with gray of not more than 3 combinations, and when he hath mastered these, he shall have 4, then 5, then 10, then 100, and so on, until when he combination of colors is placed before him, he can instantly perceive every color, shade, and tint, and the apparent velocity of light and its force acting ink emanating, and he shall pursue this study until he can create in S a counterpart of anything in the Kapoor, or create in Kapoor the counterpart of anything in S. And of sounds he shall perceive in the same way, first learning a combination of 3, so that when his teacher produceth any 3 sounds together, he can hear them and determine the exact velocity of wave. Then he shall begin with 4 sounds, notes, then 5, 10, then 100, and even 1,000, that which, even though made in the same instinct, he shall detect every one, and the velocity and force of each. This was the 33rd Divian Law. Div decreed, he shall now begin the practice of combining and creating color for sounds and sounds by colors, both in the Kapor and S. His teacher shall make explosions with light and explosions without light, and by his eye and ear only shall he be able to determine with what elements the explosions were made. This was the 34th Divian Law. Div decree, he shall go far away from the explosions, and when the waves come to him, even though he heareth not the explosion, he shall be able to determine by the waves of what substance the explosion was made, and whether in light or darkness, and if in light, what colors were manifested. This was the 35th Divian Law. Div decree, he shall now receive instruction of the sound of the conversation. First, his teacher shall cause him to hear two people conversating at the same time, missing nothing that is said, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 10, then 100, and then 1,000, but no greater number in this department. This was the 36th Divian Law. Div decree, he shall now analyze the waves of voice wherein he cannot hear the sounds thereof. His teacher shall station him in a certain place and cause him to read the waves of sound that come to him, so that he knoweth not only the words spoken, but the kind of person speaking or singing. This was the 37th Divian Law. Div decreed, his teacher shall now cause him to read the waves of sound emanating from two persons talking at the same time, who he cannot hear, and he shall understand not only the words spoken, but the kind of person speaking. Then he shall read the waves in the same way for 3 persons, then 4, then 8, then 100, and even 1,000. This was the 38th Divian Law. Div decreed, then he shall be taken to a distance from a battlefield where mortals are in deadly conflict, but he shall not be sufficiently near to hear the sounds. But when the waves come to him, he shall read them and know the number of the men in the battlefield, the kind of weapons in use, and the cause of contention. This was the 39th Divian Law. Div decreed, he shall now be promoted to be a messenger between lords and between lords and gods. This was the 40th Divian Law. Div decreed, for 100 years he shall serve as a messenger, and at the end of that time his lords and gods shall render his record and promote him to a marshal. And hereupon the emancipation of all the preceding decrees and departments shall be open to him to choose whatsoever he will, save on such a time and occasion as specifically required by the lords or God. This was the 41st Divian Law. Div decreed, for 200 years he shall serve as a marshal and under many as 40 lords and gods, and in as many as 20 heavenly kingdoms. This was the 42nd Divian Law. Div decree, he shall now be promoted Lord and have dominion over a city or nation of mortals, and over the spirits belonging to that city or nation. That was the 43rd Divian Law. Chapter 5, God propounded, if a man die and not be a Zarathustrian, what then? All the members spake, and then Div decreed, inasmuch as he accepted not the Zarathustrian law while this mortal, he is unsuited to the highest exalted places of delight, for all official preference shall be to the Zarathustrian. This was the 44th Divian Law. Div decree, of the same spirit who not belong a Zarathustrian, his education shall not run to the Lord head, nor to the Godhead. He shall not be a column in the Father's building, nor of the archstones of great strength, but he shall stand as a plain brick in the wall. Div said, I am not created gods who merely serve my time and there an end. I am to look far ahead as to who shall be lords and gods over the earth and atmospheria. Div propounded, what then shall be of the course of spirit who was not a Zarathustrian? And this was made the 46th Divian Law. he shall be delivered to the Asifs, who shall enter him in the nurseries as an Essene, where he shall remain 6 years, learning the elementary powers and expressions. Div decreed the 47th Divian Law. The same spirit shall then be apprenticed in manufacturing and general labor, where he shall serve 12 years, unless previously instructed in these things, wileless mortal. Div decreed the 48th Divian Law. He shall now enter school and learn surveying and measuring without instruments, and determining the kind of emanations that raise up from earth, that altitude and density, and he shall learn exploration and enumeration in both Kapor and S, the building of Pedmizars and Otavens, the construction of aeroships and other vessels used in the heavens to carry things from place to place, and he shall serve 30 years in these things. Div decreed the 49th Divian Law. He shall now be promoted to resorting, nursing, and caring for the Drujas, who are being rescued by the captains, generals, and lords, in which serve he shall be 30 years. But in both the 48th and the 49th Divian Law, it was afterward decreed, whosoever service he did in mortal life in these respects shall stand in his credit twofold in spirit. Div decreed, if he now acknowledge and practice faith in the great spirit, he shall be promoted to the college of creation and taught to create light and darkness. After this, he shall be taught to grist flowers and trees and cloths, and to make elementary lessons in music and expression, in which branches he shall serve 50 years. And then he shall be entitled to examination. And if he can withstand the third grade of light, he shall be ranked bridegroom of That this was the 50th Divian Law. The 51st thus provideth, if he doth not yet comprehend faith in all person, he shall be granted freedom to all the places where he hath served, and he shall be emancipated from all lords and gods, and from all labor and education, and honorably discharged, to pursue whatever he desireth in any place in heaven or earth. Nor shall the lords nor gods take more notice of him than due respect and honor. Whereupon Div, son of all light, spake, saying, this is all shall be part and parcel of the Divian Law, which is to say, of the later class raised the false gods and false lords, that often set up kingdoms of their own in atmosphere. They shall not rise above the second resurrection. The voice of Jehovah came to God, saying, without the disbeliever in spirits, mortals could not find courage to smite serpents. Without false gods and false lords, the lowest Drudras would never be put to work. They who cannot be risen by persecution may be aroused by less scrupulous masters who make slaves of them. Think about that. Think about that. What happened in our paradigm? What I just spoke. So I'm going to read one more chapter, chapter 6, and then I'll end it. In the 12th moon of the Diva, the voice of Jehovah came to Div, saying that my lords and my gods may not err that shall promulgate the foundation of the Divian Law. God perceived, and in the name of the Div, he decreed, hear me, O gods and lords, this is the foundation of Divian Law. The decrees of God and his lords, his lord gods, and his lords, not singly, but by all members, and ratified by the council of Diva under Div, son of all light, that is to say, a kingdom in heaven raiseth or falleth by Divian Law, a kingdom or nation on earth raised or fallen by Divian Law. The virtuous are rewarded and exalted by Divian Law, and the wicked are cast into trials by Divian Law. But this is not Divian Law, man to be created and live, to live a time on earth, then die and enter heaven. These are done by the ever presence, They all light the creator and not by the diva. This is Divian Law, to wit, to assist man out of darkness into light, to give security to helpless, to raise the souls of men to everlasting light, to minister unto the needy, to deliver them that are in pain, to teach man to desist laboring for himself, to teach him to labor for others. But this is not the Divian Law, for seed to grow, for a tree to grow, for a spider to weave its web. These are done by the ever-living presence, the all-master creator. This is Divian Law, to wit, to regulate the affairs of angels and mortals for their ultimate resurrection, to lay the foundation for harmony and community, to gather together in harmonious and put them in tune. But this is not Divian Law, to provide the earth with life or to hold it in its place, to build the place of the higher or lower heavens, to provide Kapor, to provide S. These things are by the ever-personal presence, the creator, and the shape and molded by his hand through the chiefs of the higher heavens. This is Divian Law, to bring together in marriage wisely for children's sake and for the joy of all. But this is not Divian Law, to give desire to marriage or desire for marriage. These are from all person, the master light. This Divian Law, when a man walketh along, to take him by the hand and bend him to the right or left. But this is not Divian Law, for the man to go forth. This he doth by ever-presence, Jehovah the Oahspe. A carpenter buildeth the house, but he built not the logs nor the stone. The diva buildeth kingdoms in heaven and kingdoms on earth, and shapeth them for usefulness and beauty. And when they are old and out of sorts, the diva abandoneth them, and they fall to pieces. Nevertheless, Oahspe provided and provideth, and with it all for the whole. Div decreed, this also shall be promulgate in heaven and earth, lest angels and mortals worship Div and Diva. For though the Diva appointed mortal kings, yet mortals shall not worship the divinity. So this is the Book of Divinity, chapters 1 through 6. I hope you enjoyed that. And FYI, when my mom, she takes care of the babies and babies who didn't make it upstairs. They all have a job. And they all go through these cycles. So what is being said there is true. And there's spirit guides who are, their job is to help us in our mortal flesh. That's the job that they took. And then when their season is over, they move on to another job. That might be for someone else, or moving up to do something else. There's a lot that's there. That is absolutely nails on the head. The order of upstairs. So I hope you enjoyed that. Spirit wanted me to go with that one big time, and that's probably because to chill everybody out, to make you realize that you never stop learning, you never stop doing. It gets exhausting, but time isn't anything upstairs that it is here perceived. So no worries. Sending each and every one of you love and light. I hope everybody is doing amazing wherever you are. Again, if there's anything you can do to help me, a like, a share, and subscribe is amazing. I'm in desperation. If you can help me out in any way with a love donation, I'd very much appreciate it. Until the next time. Bye, guys.